This is Glenn Pendlay with the Weightlifting Scoop podcast. I got Don McCauley here, and one of the things that we were going to talk about is the latest blog by Dan Bell.
Dan who?
Dan Bell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble not laughing here. Don, at any time during the show, are you going to use your Lollipop Kid voice?
Next to you, I'm always using my Lollipop Kid voice.
You guys should have heard Don about 5 minutes ago. It was pretty funny.
Dancing Don McCauley is here.
Dancing Don McCauley. We're about to push the table back and set him loose.
My Lollipop Kid.
Damn it, Don. Anyway, Dan Bell put up a blog, and it's been discussed in the Pendlay forum, and it actually was a little more, I don't know if is controversial the right word, Don? I mean, people discussed it, and there was a lot of...
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure yet why it was controversial.
Yeah. Basically, I think it was maybe just Dan. Dan can be a little bit sarcastic in his writing sometimes.
Dan?
Yeah, believe it or not, he can. And it's the way that I think that he put it. It was about training at 90% or above, and, you know, how he basically doesn't believe that anything below 90% is all that effective for weightlifting. And of course that's a kind of a controversial statement because there are, you know, quite a few systems, coaches, athletes, whatever out there that really don't train above 90% all that much, or at least, from what they write or whatever, you would not think that they do. For me, I didn't think that's very controversial because we, virtually always trying to train at least as hard as possible and as heavy as we can given the exercises that we're doing. What if you program training, Don, if you wrote out somebody's program, how often do you have 90% plus weights in there?
Well, if we're talking about the lifts themselves, I think, and again, and this probably is where it got into a little bit of trouble. It depends on where the lifter is in their career. If they're novices, I have less 90% plus because I have one reason I don't even know what 90% is. And I want to really pay attention more to technique and just lifting and getting some strength and things like that. As they become better, I think the 90% lifts go up, and eventually they become a necessary thing that you have to do to get the stimulation that you need to make big weights. My program generally goes along that way, and I'm up above 90% several times a week. And I used to not be up that much. I think I was a little more classic Russian and stayed below 90% a little more through the year.
Don, do you actually, you know, when you walk in the gym and have a lifter and you're talking about what you're going to do today, do you actually use percents that frequently? Like say, okay, we're going to go to 85% today.
Yeah.
Or when you write out a weekly program, do you write out, you know, 90% for 3 singles or 80% for 3 doubles? I mean, you use percentages that.
I usually do, yeah, and I usually when I've got somebody, I recently got back to having a couple of guys, although I'm coaching them online more than not. I write out usually a month at least in advance, and I'll put out the number of 90% lifts I want. Now, there again, that's kind of where a coaching eye comes in. If somebody is just say it's doing clean and jerk, and say you've got 3 singles at 92% or something like that. If somebody is absolutely banging the singles at 92%, I might, if I'm there in front of them, I might let them, go a little higher, or I might add another single depending on what time of year it is. So it's not, to me, if you will, it's a guideline kind of a thing. And I want to kind of see a certain number. And on the other side of that too, if they're not making lifts, then I start shutting it down a little bit. But I do have them written up normally in my programs. Yeah.
I guess the question I have, and when I replied to Dan after like 3 pages of other people replying to the post, one of my comments was kind of like, "Who cares? What does it matter?" I mean. I actually think the more I've talked to Zygmunt about programming, I think the more he's kind of almost a mirror image in this, and even Donovan talking about his program leading up to the Pan Ams, is like he always wants us to train as heavy as we can, given the exercise, given the day. If they're doing, a clean pull plus a clean and a jerk, Ziegler might have it written down where you're going to go up to 160 and then a single at 70 or whatever. But if you hit 170 and it's easy and he thinks you can do 175 or 180, obviously you're going to try it.
Yeah, and that's exactly.
Or if he has, with the same token, if he has written down go up to 170, you have a rough time with 60, then you'll either stop there or go down and do some other exercise at a light weight and then come back to it.
Like I say, I think that's very valid, and I think that's basically what I do. I like to write programs down in advance, basically so I can keep myself on track, so I can kind of remember where I am and what I'm trying to do, and remind myself what time of year I want this kid where. If he's a type of athlete who's got 2 or 3 big meets a year, then I want him in a certain place at those times, and I want to make sure I'm doing the right lead up to that. But just like I said before, and just like you said, if somebody is at the percentages I want and they're just killing it, well, I'm going to tell them to go heavier. I'm not going to go, oh no, you've got to do the percentages on the page.
Well, I just don't use really percentages when I, am in the gym.
I
because
thought you used 1% a lot. Lift a lot.
Yeah, that's a great percentage. But I mean, just because, I guess it just seems like to me if the goal is to do as well as you can in each training session, obviously there's some caveats. You're not going to maximum every exercise, but if there's a purpose for an exercise, you want to work hard at it.
Right.
And you realize there are going to be some exercises that the purpose of that exercise is not necessarily to go to maximum and hit your maximum weight. It's for some other reason, but it's just by look and by feel in that training session. And that goes from, is the technique good? Is he moving fast? Is capable of more? And also, look, is this guy or girl, I guess, dead from yesterday?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if we have a day that's supposed to be a heavy day and maybe going for have in mind a certain PR or something, and, the training the day before was brutal and they're obviously a little slow and ragged. Well, yeah, let's stop at a certain weight or something. But it's not. I don't like think, in my head, oh, that's about 70%. That's about right. It's more, okay, that looks reasonably good, but it looks like if we put any more weight in the bar, it's going to be a real struggle. And today is not the day we want to have a real struggle. So it's the percentages, I guess. Over time, just kind of faded out of my head as far as even worrying about what percentage it is.
Yeah, well, things fade out of my head a little faster than they fade out of yours. That's why I like to write down a lot of stuff.
But you're basically, what I hear you basically saying is writing down the percentages is more of a bookkeeping tactic for yourself.
Yeah, it is.
Rather than a real, real hard line on this is what, we need to be doing 85% today. It's just for you to keep straight.
It absolutely is, and it keeps me, as far as I'm concerned, it keeps me. Say again, I'll go back to we've got three clean and jerks, say at 92%, and the kid's looking good after 2, real good, just killing 2. Well,
you say 92%, I'd say heavy but not maximal.
Heavy, okay.
You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, to me is the same thing.
I like to say, okay, I've got him set for 3 reps. And I'm probably going to let him have the 3rd rep higher. And if he bangs it, maybe I'll let him have a 4th rep, but I'm not going to probably go 6 reps.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep him I want to keep the number of reps and the percentages as kind of a guideline for myself just day to day, because you can get wrapped up. And I think Dan spoke to this too, about kids who are kind of doing their own programming and kind of 90% is, or 100%, their 1 rep max is changing before they really do a 1 rep max. They're saying that their 1 rep max is going to increase in the next 12 weeks. And I think that's a dangerous thing for a kid to get into. If you haven't done it, you haven't done it. Now, I, as a coach, have on occasion done that. Said, yep, I'm going to take his next 2-month cycle is all going to be off 5 kilos more than I saw him actually clean and jerk, because We didn't do clean and jerks a lot this last cycle, and he's cleaning the hell out of everything. And I'm just gonna move it up. But that's got to be watched. That's got to be watched by a coach.
If you're training somebody long distance online, then you have to kind of go off percentages just because you're not seeing them every day. And,
exactly.
This was actually something that we were talking about with the Catalyst program. It was a beginner program, and Greg Everett was saying, like, I put a lot of percentages in those programs because I'm not there to see those people, so it's just a guideline for them to use.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think you got to be a little more careful online because what you might think is, go a little heavier might mean something entirely different to somebody you can't see.
Yeah, do you ever think in terms of the concept of like a working weight? I'm not sure exactly how to explain the concept as I see it, but for just about every lifter, after, I've watched them train for a while, I kind of just roughly, I don't really do this consciously maybe, but I think it's more subconscious. I kind of just roughly slowly develop a number in my head that is like the bottom of what is actually useful. Like say, Travis Cooper, I mean, once he gets above 130 or 35, like I'd say 135, 140, 145 weights on the snatch, to me, he looks like he's doing a snatch. That's a working weight in the snatch, something he has to pull hard for, something he has to be in the right position for, it's something he has to move.
Or Matt above 60.
Exactly. Is that one?
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm just here for comedic relief.
Exactly. Yeah. All rules are off with Matt, but it's like definitely 130 for Travis is a warm up lift. You know, I don't even know what percentage that is of his max. 80%, 85%, something like that. But I mean, to me, when I watch him do it, the way he approaches it, the way he lifts it, the way whatever, he can do whatever the hell he wants with that weight. It's not really a working weight. And I think I use that concept loosely, but it's definitely there in my mind that, okay, 30's done. Now we're working.
Now we're getting to the workout.
Now we're getting to the workout.
Yeah.
I
think I do that too.
I used to feel that way, about John North, and in my head, it's like once he hit 40, the workout started. Those are the reps that count.
Yeah.
Everything after that.
Yeah. And again, you're talking about two lifters that are rather advanced, and the technique. I'm not saying the technique is set or is as good as it's ever going to be. But their technique is certainly well developed, and I think you can do that. I think you come to that with people who have a well developed or well enough developed technique where you can kind of, as a coach, you can kind of see the time where, okay, now they're doing a real lift.
Yeah, but I kind of unconsciously use that instead of thinking is it 80%, is it 90%? I'm like, this is a working weight at this point.
Yeah.
Or just for almost every exercise, there's something that changes. One of Travis's favorite, and I think probably the most useful snatch assistance thing that he does is hang power snatches. Hang above the knee, and goes to a power. But I mean, I feel like there's a certain weight where it just looks like a working weight. This is a weight he has to work for and do things correctly and whatever. And it's a working, useful weight. But below that, it's a warm up,
Yeah.
And I think to me, that is, I think in terms of that instead of percentages. Pretty much, and I think every name off an assistance exercise or this or that, and it's like there's a point there as the weight's going up through warming up. There's a point there where it becomes a workout. Where before that, it was just warming up.
No, I think whether you use percentages or not, and I know I've done that, and it happened to be 80-something%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think you as a coach.
Yeah, I think that point is generally going to be crossed somewhere in the 80s, probably mid 80s,
something like that. And that has to be done, and that has to be, again, as Travis referred to, I think if you're coaching somebody, you have to see them to start knowing that, and you have to see a good amount of them to start knowing that. It's not a once a month or by Skype or whatever every once in a great while, but most of the workouts are really go unseen. It's much harder to do when you've got that. I agree with Boy, I agree with Catalyst. Holy mackerel. I agree with what Travis said. I think on these long-distance things, the percentages become a little more important, but in actual number value.
Now, if I was to be, I guess, constructive criticism on our programming, one thing is we don't always write everything down, and we don't necessarily go by percentages. One negative thing that can happen at the individual level is oftentimes people make big jumps, and they don't make a ton of lifts between 90 and 100%. So they might be attempting a PR, but maybe they only hit 2 lifts between 90 and 101%. And so the consistency is important too. And I think my biggest weakness going into Pan Ams was I was extremely strong, but it was very hard for me to take a series of snatches and a series of clean and jerks. So I was capable of PR weights, but I had been taking big jumps in training to get there. Where in a meet, I had to take 45, 49, 51. That was 3 reps, very close in percentage. And in the clean and jerk, 83, 87, 91, taking a series of 3 clean and jerks at a very close percentage to your max.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. I am always in favor, although I don't really insist on this. But I usually, when people ask me about a bigger jump, smaller jump, say, should I go 30 to 40 or 30, 35, 40? 99% of the time, I'm like, take 35 first, then 40, then, 40, and not, take the 30, 40, 50 type jump, just for example on the numbers. However, I really don't insist on that. I mean, if somebody wants to make a big jump and then I let them do it. I think one thing that helps balance that out is we almost always do some series of lifts, doubles, whatever, after we go after the big single. But yeah, it's very good criticism. It's probably something that we should insist on more towards the competition, that you take smaller jumps and try to make 3 or 4 lifts on the way up. One of the things that just irks the holy crap out of me is when people miss and then they go ahead and jump up after the miss.
I can't stand that.
I almost never think that's a good idea. I mean, the thing is, it works out once out of every 10 times or once out of every 20 times. You miss, say you miss a 180 clean and jerk and you jump to 90 and nail it. That does happen sometimes. And so everyone wants to do that because they don't want to, they don't want to tire themselves out with more attempts, but it only seems to work, once in a while. And then the other 9 out of 10 times you move up and miss again and end up with 3 misses and, not a lot of hit lifts. But yeah, that's a valid criticism. I think that the article in the blog that Dan wrote, and there's several pages of responses to it, to me, it's like not arguing about nothing, but it's just different ways of looking at something. And I really do think that people get too caught up in, am I training at 85%? Am I training at 90%? Am I training at whatever? When to my mind, the correct thing is, are you training as hard as you can?
Yeah.
Are you training as hard as you can? And that doesn't always mean going to max, but if you're doing 3 doubles, whatever the percentage is it the best, the heaviest, the best, 3 doubles that you can get? And that might be 80%. On another day, that might be 90%. But the important thing is to make it the best 3 doubles you can do, not necessarily what percent they're at.
Yeah, I'll probably disagree with you a little bit on that because as much as your programming does, I don't like to press all the time to the edges of what a double for this or a triple for that or a single for that. But on the other hand, like I said before, if I see that we're doing 3 triples with such and such, and it's just banging, I'm probably going to let a kid go. I'm probably going to tell a kid to go. Because, one, he's not working as hard as he can, or even close, probably, and for whatever reason. And plus, mentally, it's sometimes real good for a kid to just know he can do a little more than the percentage the program said. He gets in the mind that they're ahead of the program.
Yeah.
which is fine. What I like to guard against is people falling behind the program because, again, I'm usually writing programs up as guidelines.
Right. I think part of that mindset, it probably just, comes from myself when I was lifting maybe, and the fact that I think, remembering back as an athlete and then obviously as a coach, but when you're not, and we do have kind of a heavy light type of where we have 3 heavy days a week on the lifts and 3 light days, and actually the 3 heavy days have 2 workouts, and actually one of those is, so we're only talking about 3 days a week where we're really, really trying to push to the limit. But to me, it's kind of boring. It's coming to training, say, okay, I'm going to do 110 kilos for 3 snatches or 3 doubles, and that's what I'm going to do. And even if I feel great, that's what I'm going to do. And if I don't feel good, I'm going to struggle, but I'm going to make it. And it just seems so set in stone that it's not mentally stimulating.
Yeah, and that's something too. I think most of my coaching background has been with what I call lunch pail guys. They're working 8 hours a day. They're doing whatever they're doing. Then they're coming for a workout a day, maybe working out 4 times a week. I think when you're doing a lot of guys like that, you've got to be a little more cognizant of how much rest they might need and how much that they have to go to the job tomorrow.
And mentally, lifting's not the number one thing in their lives,
right?
And they've got all other things in their mind, and it might be actually easier to handle from a mental standpoint if they just say, okay, I got to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry. I'm not going to be sitting there between each lift thinking, can I go more? Can I go more? Mm-hmm. It's probably from a mental standpoint better a lot of the time if they just know what they're going to do that day, plow their way through it and they're done.
Yeah,
and they go home to their family. But, that's probably a little different than folks who are training full time when lifting is the number one thing in their life, and they're laying up awake at night thinking, am I going to be able to snatch 120 tomorrow or 115? I don't know,
Right.
But I think the mental stimulation is a big thing.
Oh,
I think it's a huge thing, and how well your mindset fits in with what you're doing in training. And if a person needs that feeling that they're walking into the gym, going for it, going see what they can do, see if they can make an improvement, versus just going to the gym to do work.
Yeah, and like you say, and you've got a situation here where you've got guys all week, and you take the workload off them by having different numbers of workouts each day, and certainly the one day is going to, the one workout a day is going to lighten up, and their bodies are going to rest. Whereas it's a different situation where, like I say, you've got guys coming from work or whatever and trying to work out 4 or 5 times a week.
How beneficial do you think it is for your average guy who works a 40-hour week and all the other things that average people do, kids and a wife and whatever, I mean, I'm not knocking that sort of thing, but
the way most people live, you mean?
The way normal folks live.
Yeah.
Do you think it's very useful at all for people like that to look at the training programs that, say, the athletes at the OTC do or the athletes here do? I mean, is it so different that they just get thrown off track by even observing and trying to at least partially copy it, or do you think it has value for those people?
I think the only value is that looking at either of those programs, that program type, is basically to view the athletes on YouTube or something and see what they're doing. Although even that, you can't go to copying what they do. I don't think it's a hell of a lot of value for them to look at how much workload is being done and how many high percentage.
Well, not necessarily how much workload, because obviously 9 workouts a week is going to be a lot more workload than 3.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the style of programming or the style of lifting or whatever. Is it something that you think can be looked at and say, okay, they do this, now I can only do 3 workouts a week, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to sort of kind of copy it in a reduced fashion.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think copying a program like that might lead to too much work for them, even if because again, I always worry about what people think is going to be a light day or what they think is light percentages, and if they start to fail a lot, I worry about that. If they're working enough that they're more successful than failing, I feel pretty good about what they're doing. If they're trying to copy whether it be the OTC program or you guys, what I'd call professional programs. I think there's only so much value they can get out of it. And I don't think overall it's very valuable to them.
So, Glenn, when we go to seminars and we give them the spiel on training 3 days a week, I guess if you look at our light days, those are the days where we have a lot of makes, and then on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're going to max, so we're typically going to have a lot of misses. How do you think someone who's going to train 3 days a week alters the afternoon programming on Monday, Wednesday, Friday to keep up with it and have more made lifts than missed?
I think you just have to. I think probably you just have to put more limits in, and not. I think at least on 2 of those days, just program pick attempts with the idea that you're not going to miss. Or if you do miss, you immediately go back down, and not. You guys have the freedom. I think sometimes this works in your favor. Sometimes it might not, but yourself, Travis, you have made lifts on your 10th try or 20th try or something where if you're working 50 hours a week somewhere, you're getting up, going to work at 8 a.m. and trying to have to get off at, 5 or whatever. I don't know that you really have the freedom to do that as far as it's going to destroy you for a week. Whereas you can come back, maybe the next workout you're a little tired, but within a day or two, you're fine.
Yeah, that works for me, but like Don is saying, you want to have much more successful lifts than failed lifts, so Tuesday, Thursday, and all my morning sessions, I have exactly 0 misses every time, unless I'm maxing out my power snatch. Typically, if I miss a power snatch, it's just going to be a full snatch, right? So, really, still not missing the weight. And people don't see those workouts. So,
well, that's something I've always thought. I don't know what to do about this, but we put up videos. Now we do cut out, some misses and stuff. We put up videos, but people look at Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoon on the videos, and they have the idea that that's every workout for us. And Jarvis makes a good point. Our morning workouts are vastly different. We do stay lighter. There shouldn't be any miss. A miss should be an unusual occasion.
Yeah.
And the Tuesday, Thursday workouts where we normally do different exercises. So our training in reality, if somebody came to the gym and looked at 7 days of training, it's going to be a lot different than what you see on video. And I believe it or not, I have worried about that sometimes, like people trying to copy or I want to do what these guys are doing, and they have the idea that we come in and go to absolute max every single workout. And even the workouts that are on the videos, a lot of the light lifts don't get on there.
No.
They're not filming Travis doing his no hook grip snatches up to, 90 or 100 before he takes weight off the bar and then goes up on a regular snatch, or things like that are an integral part of, the training. They just see the 140, 150 snatches, that looks like, everything, all we're doing is maxing out. So
yeah. And
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about that.
No, there's not a lot you can do or really should do, about that. I think, other than maybe something like this where you talk about it a little bit, but I think what is good about putting, these things on line and stuff like that is they give a good example to everybody out there, to guys that are just plugging away, of what can be achieved, and what guys are doing, and the guys work hard, and it's not easy all the time.
That's a good point. And what you just made me think of there is my old coaching situation, Wichita Falls, and I always thought that one of the biggest advantages that I had there when developing young kids, because we had some young kids start at an early age there and become pretty decent. Some international team members, an American record or two, it was not ideal in all situations, but I tell you what, some kid comes in, he's 12 years old, and he's, in his first year of training and really, really trying to clean and jerk 50 kilos, and he's training on a platform next to, say, Donnie Shankle.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, or he's training in the platform next to Josh Wells, who was a junior world team member when he was 19. And, the attitude from those young kids, if they'd been in that culture for a year or two, it suddenly, when I first started the program, I started with a bunch of 15-year-old kids, that were football players, and it grew from there. But from that beginning, everyone's saying, man, I'd love to clean and jerk 300 pounds one day. Wouldn't that be awesome? over years to, I wonder how long it will take me to get over 400 pounds in the clean and jerk. Will I be able to do it before I'm 20? Or before I graduate high school? Or will I not do it till after high school? And so, towards kind of the last couple of years that program was running strong, at one point we had 8 400-pound clean and jerkers in the room. And when you're 12 or 13 and you're starting out, that's a hell of an atmosphere that tells you, hey, I should expect to lift these big weights. And I would hope, I don't know how much effect our videos and everything actually have on anybody, but I guess one thing that can be a positive, even though a lot of people are not in a situation in life where they can just copy it, at least it hopefully can expand some horizons as far as what American drug-free lifters can actually do. No, we're not relegated to training 3 times a week because we aren't on steroids. We can actually train hard. And hey, look at Travis Cooper. He's zeroing in on a 200 kilo clean and jerk at 85. We can lift some big weights.
Yeah, I think that's
it's
true.
Not just the Russians,
No, and I think
just the Bulgarians or whatever that can actually train hard, train to maximum, and kick ass. We can do it too.
You and I have talked about this before. Your situation at Wichita Falls, and I think that even though it's online and not right next door, it gives that kind of a plus to people out around the country trying to train that this stuff can be done. Yep, you might have to make sacrifices. I remember years ago when Suzanne wanted to make the world team and that stuff, and my basic advice to her was, well, you've got to quit your full-time job, go to part-time, and give me 5 workout days a week. And that was it, instead of 3, which made her a national competitor, but she needed to step up, and she needed more than that, but that's what we could reasonably do. And now seeing guys online who are doing this and making that kind of commitment in life, and improving and, putting up big weights is great.
Do you think actually seeing people who are making sacrifices to be great in the sport encourages other people to view that as a realistic possibility, that something that had they never been exposed to it and everybody that they knew lifted weights, worked a full-time job, trained 3 times a week, it would never even occur to them what is possible?
No, absolutely. And not only that, but they know it's actually going on, where years ago, it just wasn't. It just wasn't available to anybody. He had the OTC, but that was really, years and years ago, that was kind of only for a couple of people, and that was going to be it. And it's one place in a country that's an awfully big country.
Matt, I'll give you a chance to contribute something positive here. If there were not YouTube videos up of places like Cal Strength, MDUSA, whatever others there are, if you couldn't see that on YouTube, if you didn't know that 20 other American 20-something age lifters were training full-time, figuring out a way to make it work, pursuing the dreams of making it to the Olympics, would you have ever done that?
Most likely not, just because even when I was just starting out with weightlifting on my own and not even looking at YouTube videos, just trying to do things from what I read in books or whatever, and just listening to other coaches, it was always mostly a reference of, what the Russians are doing or what the Bulgarians did or what the Chinese are doing. So just kind of in that early stage of my lifting career, it was all these other guys in the world are doing stuff, so can I or even another American do it? And then seeing what you guys were doing out at Cal Strength and what we're doing now, it just really changes the perception for me and probably for a lot of people too.
Well, I personally, I've been in weightlifting long before there was YouTube videos every day and all that crap, but honestly, watching the Cal Strength live feed, I would watch it before I trained, and I would say, all right, I want to snatch more than Kevin, and I want to clean jerk more than John today. And so it took my training a step up. I took it a little more seriously. I only had a couple training partners, and at the time they weren't. They were just starting out. They're real good lifters now, but at the time they weren't doing the same weights as me. So those YouTube videos definitely helped me. So like Don is saying, it can step your game up.
Something that's only slightly related to that. This is not to say that I don't think we can learn from these other countries, that I don't, that I am dismissing them. But does it ever piss anybody else off when we are constantly, we think of training, we think of weightlifting, we just think of it in such a way as that we're constantly catching up, copying. You know,
It pisses me off.
yeah, well, yeah, and you know what? I feel the same way.
I really don't think. I think the catch up that we have to do is a catch up in finding the talent that's out there, and also creating the programs that are going to work in this country. Because I think they're going to have to be a little different. Because we're very, 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 very unlikely to be able to create a program that mimics either the European or the Chinese model from age 7 up. I think we're going to continue to get middle teenage boys and women, or boys and girls rather, and we're going to have to fix them as they go sort of program, and then bring them along, because there are going to be things that they lack, usually technical things that they're going to lack, that we're going to have to play catch up, and I think that's a uniquely American problem.
Well, yeah, but it's just the mindset of being second best and accepting that and being huge fan. Somebody asked me here just yesterday recently, if I was all very excited for Clock Up to come over to the U.S. My initial reaction is no. And I don't have nothing against Clock Up. I have nothing against. He seems like a nice guy. Good dancer.
Good dancer.
Good dancer.
Saw him dive in a pool. Real good.
Oh, well, that's even better.
He shaves his chest, evidently, too.
He does shave his chest. It's one of the only things that I have against him.
You don't like anybody shaving anything.
No, not really.
Not shaving, yeah.
Escaping.
But I remembered back to when I was a powerlifter. I remember people asking me, or several different times people asked me, like, who my heroes in the sport were. Who did you look up to? I mean, the first thing I could think of, people like, Bill Kazmaier. First thing I thought was, no, those people piss me off because I want to lift more than them and I want to beat them. I'm not like looking up to them like, oh my God, you're my hero. I never do more than you. No, it's like piss me off. Well, he totaled 22 something this, did that or whatever. I'm like, fuck, I gotta do that. I'm not here to be, I never was a great powerlifter. I never was like Bill Kazmaier. I mean, he's freaking awesome, but I wasn't ready to accept that, as I was in the sport, moving up, making progress. I wasn't just ready to accept, I'm going to be as good as I can be, but I could never be as good as, say Ricky Dale Crane. He's a guy I knew.
Those guys, and that used to, we talked about this years ago, and it used to piss me off, and of course, and whether, you can get into this or not, but, there's going to be a difference with the drug use. But you know what? That's not the reason that we weren't at one time lifting more. The reason we weren't lifting more is we weren't finding the lifters, and we weren't working on programs that would work in this country, and we didn't have situations like Cal Strength and now MD and several other places in the country that people could go and train as professional weightlifters. Now that we're seeing more of that, we're suddenly seeing our numbers are coming back up again, especially with the younger group and the group that's been training, say, over the last 6 or 7 years, because they're not afraid of the numbers anymore. And they understand that, okay, there might be a difference between the supplements that those guys are using and we're using, but that doesn't mean we can't get A-session lifters. That doesn't mean we should be relegated to the D-session or something like that. No, that's just making an excuse. Find a way to train harder, find a way to train more, and find the right people to train, and you're likely going to bring everybody up and be in there, whacking away with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I just sometimes the amount of like hero worship of some of the foreign lifters just it kind of unnerves me, because I'm like, that shouldn't be. I mean, maybe for a guy that's 35 years old, he's lifting in his garage, he's more of a weightlifting fan than maybe he does the lifts, but he's not with the intention of going to the Olympics, not with the knowledge that maybe he has that talent or whatever. But with guys that are up at the top that are making international teams that are training full time, I don't know. I just find it odd sometimes.
I don't think hero worship of somebody still involved in a sport is really a healthy thing. I never did it. I never had it. if it's hero worship, I worship somebody that's dead and gone now. That's nice, but hero worship, that sets a bad precedent in your own training mind. No,
you're accepting that you're not going to beat that guy. And I would like to see more American lifters, I think, be a little more aggressive in their approach to lifters from other country, not just, they're so great, more like, those mother effers, I'm going to beat that guy, I mean,
where are you coming up with this? Who acts like this, Glenn?
I can't really name somebody. It's just like a general cultural type thing I see sometimes.
Yeah, I think basically the average person who's on the forum kind of like reveres other countries because they're on the podium or something. But to be quite honest, being inside the sport, I've had plenty of conversations with Abadjiev and other coaches, and it's like they don't say anything really. Like they don't even talk about technique because they didn't teach the lifters technique. So it's like they really don't have anything to offer me, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. But if you go into a lot of, I guess, circles or different people in USA weightlifting, there is the idea of if you learn something from, say, Don McCauley, it's like, well, but if you learned it from Abadjiev, it's like, oh my God, let me in on a secret.
Yeah, I've got to add an SKI or an OV to my name.
Yeah, anybody that speaks with an Eastern European accent must be a genius.
Maybe I can do that.
But if you've got McCauley, no, but if you've got,
no, but it's the same.
New England accent or something, you must not know what you're talking about.
Travis has got a good, healthy athlete's mindset. And he's had the experience of talking to some of these guys. I've had the experience of being in a room with Abadjiev coaching. I was nonplussed. If you got lifters in front of you and you're telling them this and telling them that, okay, fine. We all do that. But I didn't hear any angels singing either. I didn't see anything that I really said, oh my God, I've never in my life thought of such a thing. And these guys are pretty much like that. We do get, and I'm not sure about whether it's the athletes altogether, but certainly the coaches and things like that are a little enamored with foreign anything.
Some of that's probably just human nature.
Maybe. It's
you're never a hero in your hometown, The rest of the world can love you, but the guy you grew up next door to, you're still the guy you grew up next door to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even in the Bible, that Jesus wasn't. They didn't believe that he was worthy of miracles in his hometown. So it's kind of the same thing, When you travel out of state, people are going to listen to you more. They're going to listen to you more than their local CrossFit affiliate. Even if you're not saying too much different, I mean, that's just kind of like that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a healthy dose of that in there. I don't know why. It's something that quite often annoys me. I think the Klokov seminars coming up have like driven it home a little bit. Everybody and their dog is like, oh my God.
Attended to.
Oh sure, yeah, and that's great. That's fine. Like I said, I don't have anything against Klokov.
No,
not at all. It's just sometimes, I'm just a little bit frustrated, I guess, that the amount of reverence just because someone is European, I guess, it just frustrates me sometimes.
Probably at your age and certainly at my age, probably had a good enough dose of that over the years.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we strayed far off the initial topic.
We didn't give Dan Bell nearly enough shit.
No, we should have gave him a lot more, but
he's liberal,
He is a lib. But so we strayed quite a bit, but still that was fun, and it was fun.
And Dan, like foreigners.
Dan, yeah, he hates foreigners. But Dan, we're coming for you next
Xenophobe.
time. We'll get a lot more barbs in next time.
Yeah.
All right, follow us on Twitter at WLiftingScoop and check out our website, theweightliftingscoop.com.